It's Thursday, the 11th day of January, 2024. Your Day with a Podcast brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that even as temperatures drop and snow is on the horizon in Thermopolis, you can always find yourself in hot water. And you're going to want to find some of that hot water here in the coming days as winter's striking back. There's really, at this point in time, no turning this boat around. Everything that we've been watching and anticipating does appear to be coalescing into a pretty confident forecast in terms of confidence level. Certainly that's going to be the case with the cold. Our confidence is also growing as well that there will be not so much widespread snows, but pockets of snows that will be impactful across the region. We do have a Pacific wave that came in late yesterday and last night, bringing another round of snow to the mountains. And some of you saw some snow overnight, and some of you will wake up with some snow showers this morning, especially across portions of Nebraska, portions of Wyoming, portions of Montana, and parts of the mountain areas of Colorado. There's also a pretty good wedge of cold air, kind of a, let's say, a preview. A little chunk of very cold Canadian air came in overnight, and today is going to be a blustery cold day. There's also going to be strong winds again along I-25 and I-80 in southeastern and southern Wyoming later today, tonight, into early Friday. Arctic air is going to come on in along and east of the divide in full force Friday through early Tuesday. Periods of mountain snow will continue. So the ski areas, the snowpack areas, all will continue to see snow right on into early next week. So that'll be good news, although with this heavier snow accumulating in the mountains, we're going to talk about something here later on this week that we haven't talked about at all because of the lack of mountain snow, and that is avalanche dangers are going to be really going up. At first, the bitter cold air is going to be hung up by the Continental Divide. It does appear as though far western and far southwestern Wyoming, Utah, northwest Colorado, eastern Idaho, you're probably going to avoid the severe cold, at least initially. But we still expect it to get over the divide sometime later this weekend into early next week. As we mentioned yesterday, stock rowers prepare. As we said here at the beginning, we're not turning this boat around. It's coming. So be ready for dangerous livestock weather conditions for a prolonged period. Really, it's basically from today through Tuesday. Stock rowers, you're going to see a break in the cold by the middle of next week, probably around Wednesday. So the Arctic air by then should retreat. What happens after that, we'll have to see. Hazardous travel will be found in many areas. This is a situation you do not want to venture out into this winter weather that's coming unless you're really prepared, especially with your vehicle. Also, this is a good time to check those pipes and be ready for some severe freezing that could cause some of those problems that we see with severe cold. Satellite imagery this morning. Here's that Pacific wave coming through. Pretty impressive. This is going to end up blowing up into a major Great Lakes Midwestern storm here in the coming days. Here is the weather here across the Pacific we've been showing you. You can't really see the bitter cold air up here. We'll show you a map that will show you that here in a moment. So this is the map we've been showing you all week. Look at all the pink, all the blue. Basically anything that's shaded blue or pink or red is going to be some type of winter weather advisory or warning or watch for either snow, severe cold, hard freezing conditions, heavy snow, bitter cold wind chills. And a lot of the nation going to be under the grips of that. The brown areas show where we're going to see another period of high winds along that I-80 corridor. That's going to cause more blowing snow and more travel hazards. If you take a look at Wyoming, focusing in, we've got blizzard warnings here in Jackson along the Idaho-Wyoming border. We've got winter storm warnings here in the pink in southwestern Wyoming, the Wind Rivers. We already have wind chill warnings and advisories for this area of the state. And even though these areas here aren't under any advisory, it doesn't mean you're missing anything. It just hasn't reached that level of criteria. That will likely change. So there is a lot going on. The pattern looks about the same as we've been showing you. By noon today, the pattern takes the shape that we've been expecting, the consolidation of the bitter cold air in Canada. We start to see these waves come through. That's what's coming through right now. and the loading of the very cold air along the east slopes of the Canadian Rockies. And there you can see it. This is by noon today. You see these pink areas? These pink areas are where you're talking temperatures that are around -40 or colder. And you can see that this is by noon today. The gray, where you see gray, that's forecasting sub-zero temperatures. So into the first northern half of Montana into North Dakota, that bitter cold is going to be moving in by noon today. This is by noon tomorrow. We see this very cold air elongate north-south right up against the divide. This is the storm that's going to blow up across the Great Lakes and Midwest here as we get on into the weekend. This little wave here is going to cause that overrunning situation. So everything is basically going as expected. By 5 a.m. tomorrow, you can see the leading edge, the boundary here is right there. Look at these temperatures in Canada. Now, these are not wind chills. This is the forecasted air temperature. -59, -52. I think those are legit. In fact, we have one model that is even colder than that, but this one is kind of actually the middle of the road in terms of severity. But you can see how very cold the air is right up here along the border by then. Then as we get ourselves into what the precipitation looks like, combining the wave that's moving through now and another wave that's coming through Friday and Friday night, you can see where the precipitation is going to be, and this is where the snowfall is going to be through tomorrow. This is just through tomorrow. So you can see the snow starts to get a little bit more abundant in the northern and central areas and certainly into the mountains. By 5 p.m. Saturday, the very cold air is backed up against the divide, and here comes this little low, and that's going to cause that overrunning over the boundary of the deeper, very, very cold Canadian air. And as we go through the time lapse here, as we go through the next several days, where you see the purple and the dark blue, that's where temperatures are likely going to be, at least in the Rockies and Plains, sub-zero. And you can see over time, this takes us all the way through Tuesday afternoon. You can see the red come in there. That's by next Wednesday. So by next Wednesday, we'll get a break from the severe cold. But between now and then, you can see the cold expand, move south, and move east. And as we've been showing you throughout the week, the Continental Divide, the mountainous terrain, is going to be able to hold back not all, but a fair amount of the bitter cold for areas west of the divide. As you can see that, then we're going to see this cold really spread across the rest of the nation, causing a lot of problems, very high impact winter events, coast to coast, all the way into next week, with that big blob of very cold air. These are the temperature readings by tomorrow night. This is around 11 p.m. on Friday. So you can see, look at these temperatures in northwest Montana. Look at that -48. Again, where you see that pink shading, it may hit 40 below or less. Okay, by Saturday morning, the bitter cold air, the boundary of it, does creep over the divide a bit. But look at Sweetwater, Uintah County. As you get into southwestern Wyoming and northeastern areas of Utah, the mountains are holding back that bitter cold air as best as they can. But the rest of the state and region, down into Denver by Saturday morning, temperatures are sub-zero. So this is by Saturday morning. This is by Sunday morning. So notice the boundary here in southwestern Wyoming goes back to the northeast again. It kind of goes in and out like waves on a beach. Think of the Continental Divide as basically the beachhead, and the waves of bitter cold air come up against the divide as they surge southward. So you can see what the terrain really does in terms of impacting things. But one reason why it's warm here, it goes from this Saturday to this Sunday, is we have that milder Pacific air pushing up against it here, and that's what's going to bring the overrunning precipitation over this dome of cold air. And this is what we see by Tuesday morning. By Tuesday morning, it gets into Sweetwater County, Uintah County, Carbon County here. So you'll get the taste of the bitter cold before it begins to retreat to the east by Wednesday. We talked about wind chills and how dangerous they could be. These are the wind chill values by the time you get up 5 a.m. Saturday. And these are the wind chill values by Sunday morning. And then by Tuesday, you can see the core of the Arctic air is getting down to the Gulf Coast, getting all the way down into Mexico and headed east. This is a bit of a chinook developing by Wednesday into Thursday. So there will be relief, stock growers, in this area by the middle to the end of next week with the severe cold headed east. However, we're not out of the woods yet. We could still see very cold air back in by next weekend. The precipitation forecast for the next round, basically this is going to be from late tomorrow through early Monday. Notice, as we have showed you before, that I-80 corridor area is going to be susceptible to some significant snow at times as these Pacific waves move over that cold air boundary, and you can see the heavy snow that'll be falling in the mountains. So this is basically on the second end of the storm and the combination and the collision of air masses, and this is what the snowfall looks like. Again, look at those numbers not as a forecast, but the pink and the blue areas showing you where the heavier snow is going to be and where it will be more impactful. And across the nation over the next 10 days, very impressive. There's going to likely be an ice situation, possibly into the Dallas area and along the Appalachians where that cold air will mix it up with that moisture. And you can see also into the Pacific Northwest here, could have some problems with icing conditions there. If you look at the 10 days ahead, the nation as a whole, if you look at the temperature anomaly, you can see how this goes coast to coast. And although this area shows orange, don't worry, the bitter cold air will get up into New England later on in the forecast period. So a very impressive event coming our way. We'll have an update for you today.